Hey, it's me, Nicholas.
And me, Ash.
Today we're talking about Modern Horizons 2.
But first, we want to introduce a new segment. We're calling it The Best Card From.
Each episode will discuss our favorite cards for Highlander from each set, ranging all the way from Alpha to whatever the newest set is at the time.
Today we'll be talking about Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and Revised. Nicholas, what's your best card from those sets?
So it's probably, I don't think it's the best card, but my favorite card to play in Highlander, which is still a pretty good one, is Time Walk.
Yeah,
what about you?
I would agree that one is in fact a pretty good one. Similar in fame, my favorite card out of that set is gotta be Ancestral Recall. Admittedly, I have not actually played with this card very much in Highlander. I've played with it a small amount. I've played it with like 3 or 4 other pieces of power more than it, but it is still it is the cornerstone of most of the decks that I would play that have power in them. So that would be my pick.
That one is quite good.
Yeah. So we don't want to take too much time here, so we're going to get on to the set review. But as Nicholas said, we'll be talking about Modern Horizons 2 today, but we're only going to be talking about the cards that either one of us or both of us particularly wanted to talk about, because obviously there's a lot of air in the set, and we don't want to have a 4-hour long episode here.
So yeah, do we just want to start with the first card?
Yeah, sounds good to me. I moved from the Mythic Spoiler. Okay. So the first card that I wanted to talk about was Break Ties. I don't think it's necessarily going to be like the most crazy thing ever, but I feel like also I guess we should briefly explain some of the cards that aren't obvious, that aren't like the ones that everyone saw in the spoilers.
Yeah.
But it's 2 and a white for an instant, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or exile a card from a graveyard. You choose one. Or you can reinforce one, which is what you pay white and discard the card to put a 1/1 counter on a creature. So just I think the reason I think it might see some play is just the immense versatility of it. Obviously, it's just worse than whatever that green card that got printed a little while ago and then printed again was. It's just like 1 and a green does the same thing minus the reinforce. But I think there might be decks where this might be playable. Maybe like the 1/1 counter deck. I just think it's so versatile that it could see some play, but that's about it.
Alright. The next card that I wanted to talk about is Asper Sentinel. It's 1 white for an artifact creature human soldier. Whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, draw a card unless that player pays X, where X is Asper Sentinel's power. It's a 1/1. I don't think that this one's going to see a whole lot of play either, but I can definitely see it in Death and Taxes decks in a fairly control-heavy meta, or like a combo-heavy meta or something like that.
So I did not think about this. I thought about this in Death and Taxes and said, you know what, I don't like it. But I did not think about it. I didn't realize it was an artifact creature. I did not think about it in Affinity. And thinking about it in Affinity, I think, like in a build that you're playing enough white sources to cast it, I think this actually might be more reasonable. Because yeah. I didn't really think about that.
Because you can get counters on it pretty easily in that deck as well.
Yeah, or just like having lords that just make it more relevant that it'll be taxing them. All right, moving on to the next card. It's called Out of Time. This is the one most people probably saw in the spoilers. It's when Out of Time. It's a 1 white for an enchantment. When Out of Time enters the battlefield, untap all creatures, then phase them out until Out of Time leaves the battlefield. Put a time counter on Out of Time for each creature phased out this way, and it has Vanishing. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you remove a time counter from it, and then when the last one's removed, you sacrifice the card. It's basically a 3-mana Wrath that, I mean, this stuff will come back, but it'll take a while for this stuff to come back usually. Obviously, the weirdest thing is that it can get Abrupt Decayed and then everything comes back.
Yeah, that is...
I think it's because of how relevant tempo is in this format. I think if you can Wrath 3 or 4 creatures away on... Well, honestly, 2 or 3 creatures away on turn 3, 4, or 5. And then, if they come back, you're getting so much time before they come back. And if they decide to commit to the board again, by then, if you're playing it that's playing this, you probably acquired another Wrath. I don't know. I think it's probably going to be worth trying at the very least.
The next card that we have is Prismatic Ending. It's white and X for a sorcery. It says, converge, exile target non-land permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast the spell. This is another one that I don't think is, like, crazy, but, like, I can definitely see it playing it in, like, an Abzan mid-range deck, or, some sort of, like, Esper control, or Esper mid-range, or Jeskai mid-range, or something like that.
I want to compare it to Nethroi's command. Nethroi's Mythos of Nethroi. It's 2 and a black, destroy target creature, or destroy target permanent if it's a creature, or if you spent Abzan on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I feel like the place that honestly might see most play is in 4-color blood.
Yeah, that
like even really more than an Abzan, just in 4-color blood, because like Abzan has a lot of stuff. 4-color blood kind of needs the more efficient stuff, and this can be really efficient for smaller things. Like you can literally just like if you just cast this for white, you destroy Vial, a ton of
mana dork
rocks.
that they play turn 1.
Yeah, their mana dork. And the fact that it exiles is relevant too. I think this one will be pretty. I think it'll show up. I think it'll be kind of thing you're not surprised to see, but it's not going to be like insane.
Yeah, I wish it was an instant. But...
Yeah, that's the big thing. All right, so our next card is called Sanctifier Envec. I don't think this is going to be an insane card. It's white for a creature, human cleric, a 2/2. It has protection from black and red. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards that are black or red from all graveyards. And if a black or red permanent, spell, or card not on the battlefield would be put into a graveyard, exile instead. So
yeah, I'm interested to see why you like this, because I don't like this card.
So I don't like love it or anything, but in a like 2 or 3 color humans build, or in like a less death and taxes, more white weenie kind of deck, I can see it primarily for it's a 2-mana creature that has protection from the 2 best removal colors. That's really it. Like, I mean, like the graveyard stuff is relevant. Like, they're not going to delve their stuff as easily. You might be nuking like a Grixis player's Snapcaster targets, but it's just like it's a relatively efficient protected creature.
Yeah.
But that I don't love it. I just thought it was worth mentioning. I just thought it was kind of cool, and I kind of like the interesting specific color graveyard hate. It was interesting.
Yeah, maybe I think it's probably more of like a meta call, because I feel like it feel really bad to draw that against anything that's not black or red.
That's true. All right, so on to the next card is we're hitting a string of cards that you did not like, but I did.
Nope.
So we're into Sarah's Emissary. This is 4 white for a creature angel, 7/7, flying. As it enters the battlefield, choose a card type, and you and creatures you control have protection from the chosen card type. I think this is likely to be this looks like to me it's going to be a bulk mythic, and for that reason I think this might be relevant for a budget reanimator build. And yes, I know it is weird for me to be calling a card will be budget friendly, but I'm calling it.
I will give you that it will probably be good for budget reanimator builds. But
there's actually a couple cards in this set that I think might be relevant for budget reanimator.
Yeah, but as far as like it being the best option for a deck, I don't think that.
Yeah, I don't think so. Next is Skyblade's Boon. It's 1 and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and flying, and then you can pay 2 and a white to return it to your owner's hand. Activate that ability only if it's on the battlefield or in your graveyard. I just think this is going to be relevant for the there's like a Bant, kind of call it Bant Hexblade, but it's kind of like a Bogle's style deck. I think it would be relevant there, and I think I actually would consider playing this in 4-color prowess, because I play like Rancor in that deck, and just some cards that give evasion that, like, even if you don't kill them that turn, like, they're gonna keep the evasion is pretty good. And the fact that you can buy this back, like if you just kind of flood out, you can get additional prowesses off of it, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I still don't think I like it that much, but
you'll
probably kill me with it. So
yeah, that's the truth. All right, talk to me about Solitude.
So Solitude is 3 white for a creature elemental incarnation. It has flash, lifelink, and when it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 other target creature, and then that creature's controller gains life equal to its power, and that has evoke for the cost of exiling a white creature from your hand, and it's a 3/2. I love everything about this card. First of all, as someone...
But Nicholas, you have to exile a card from your hand to evoke it, and then it sacrifices anyway? That's so bad.
I mean, I'll get to that. Ephemerate is a card. But as someone that quite loves the Bant ETB deck, this card is just absolutely absurd in that deck. Not to mention, like, it's good in mid-range decks, maybe some control decks. I'll probably try it in 4-color Kiki Pod. Like, this card is, like, I love this card.
You're considering playing it in Pod?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I play Palace Jailer in that deck, and honestly, I think I like this more than that.
Wow, that's high praise. All right, well, I don't think I can add anything to that. Enough said.
So this is a card that I liked, and Ash was not too high on. But Timeless Dragon is 3 white for a creature dragon with flying, plane cycling for 2, and Eternalize for 2 white, and it is a 5/5. I think this card is really, really good in medium white, which, to be fair, is not a very often played deck. But I think this gets right in there, and I can see this like playing this in some mid-range decks, maybe like some mid-range decks that have like some sort of self-mill theme, or like honestly just having a 5/5 flyer that they have to deal with twice. That worst case scenario, you just pay 2 to go get a plains. Like, I think this card offers enough utility to be played in like mid-range decks.
You know, honestly, I didn't realize how low the Eternalize cost was, and the fact that you can cycle it and get a Tundra.
Yeah.
I might consider trying this in blue-white control. Like, I don't usually play cards that are just win conditions, but like this is resilient, unless they swords it.
I mean, yeah,
or Solitude it.
Oh no. Additionally, if I'm not mistaken, the Zombie Dragon token looks incredible for this.
I think it's maybe so. I'm not sure.
I think I saw it once, and I was like, oh, that's really cool.
Well...
Alright, go ahead and take us to the next card.
Sure. This next card is called Dress Down. It's 1 in a blue for an enchantment with flash. When Dress Down enters the battlefield, 3 best words of magic, you draw a card. It says, creatures lose all abilities, and at the beginning of the end step, you sacrifice Dress Down. Honestly, I don't even know if this is going to be good. I just really want to cast Dress Down when someone, like, activates Kiki Jiki targeting Pestermite.
I mean, like, that's pretty fine, but you still haven't answered the threat. I feel like there's just better ways to...
But it also does other things.
Yeah, I mean, it cantrips.
Yeah. Like, you can cast it in response to them casting a massive walking ballista.
Yeah, it just feels like, I feel like this, again, feels bad in any matchups where that's not especially relevant. Like, yeah, sure, you can cycle it, but...
That's just the thing. I've played Hallowed Moonlight before because, and honestly, that works against Kiki Jiki Pestermite too. But, like, I've played that because it's so easy just to cycle it, you know? Like, it's the kind of thing where it can be a versatile answer to something that is hard to answer normally, but also you can just cycle it.
Yeah, I can see where that would be playable.
And you can cycle it at instant speed is also relevant.
So for our next card, we have Lose Focus, which is 1 in a blue for an instant with Replicate for a blue, and it says counter target spell unless its controller pays 2. I really like this card. I think
this card's great.
I think it's probably stronger than Mana Leak, just because it gets worse late game, but it is still good. Like, if you just put 4 mana into it, it's counter target spell unless its controller pays 6, which, if they have 6 mana up...
If you put 3 mana into it, it's counter target spell unless they pay 4.
Yes, that is how math works. I'm just kidding.
I'm saying, like, you skipped that step, and that step is pretty relevant by itself.
Yeah, so I really like this card. Plus, if you're like against a storm deck and they like try to kill you and you have like 5 mana up, you can just counter 4 of their things.
Now, it is relevant that 4 of those need to be blue, but if you're playing a good deck, they will be.
Yeah, this probably gets less good the more colors you have. Like, I can see maybe playing it in a 3-color deck, but you probably really want it in like a blue-white deck or like a Dimir deck or
you
something
could be in
like
a
that.
3-color deck that's heavily blue.
Yeah.
Alright, so our next card here I think is ridiculously good. It's called Murktide Regent. It is 5 blue for a creature dragon. It's a 3/3. It has flying. It has delve, which is the most relevant word. And when it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery you exiled when you cast it. So if you're playing like an Is It deck or like an Is It Blitz style deck or even honestly a control deck, you can just drop this for 2 mana and it very reasonably be an 8/8. If you're playing, like, I play a ton of cantrips in those kind of decks. So like this could very reasonably just be an 8/8 when you play it. And additionally, whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, like a Snapcaster Mage or a Scavenging Ooze or something, it gets a 1/1 counter.
Yeah, I think this card is like really strong in like the Jeskai mid-range decks. Like, I feel like that just fits right in with their kind of like flying big threats that you have to deal with.
This thing's evasive, it's huge, you can cast it for so cheap, it could get bigger. I just think it's really, really good.
Yeah.
Alright, so the next card is Raving Visionary. Yeah, this is another card that I think might be something that... I don't think this would be a budget reanimator card as much as maybe a normal reanimator card. It's called a Raving Visionary. It's 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard. You can pay a blue, tap it, draw a card, then discard a card. And then if you have Delirium, which is if you have 4 or more card types in your graveyard, you can pay 2 and a blue and tap it and draw a card. Admittedly, the mana cost on activating it is kind of steep, but in the reanimator decks, you play a decent number of these. Like, you play Merfolk Looter, you play Jace Vryn's Prodigy, play some other ones that I can't remember what they're called. But just having one that, like, lets you shift your control plan if you have to, I don't know. I think it might be worth trying.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I can definitely see where you're coming from.
I don't even know if I would necessarily play it in reanimator, but I just think it's the thing that it wouldn't surprise me if it showed up.
Yeah. The next card on our list is Subtlety. It's 2 blue for a creature elemental incarnation. Flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it on the top or bottom of their library, and then evoke to exile a blue card from your hand, and it's a 3/3.
I really, really love this card because it's very reminiscent of a very good card in Highlander called Memory Lapse.
I mean, that card is fine. I like this less as a counterspell and more as like a very strong tempo card. Like, the tempo that you get from landing your 3 mana flying threat and also setting them back is very strong.
Are you going to put this in ban ETB and then make me never want to play Magic again?
I plan to.
We could say more about this card, but it's just going to be really good. Moving on to the next card, it's called Suspend. It is 1 blue mana for an instant. Exile target creature and put 2 time counters on it. If it doesn't have Suspend, it gains Suspend.
I'm interested. Why do you like this card over like Pongify or something? Which I don't like that card in Highlander either.
Similar to why I think Out of Time is going to be good, because that tempo swing is so relevant. I think, like, this isn't... I mean, it'll be fine as, like, dealing with a later threat, but I think it'll be pretty cool dealing with, like, an early threat that then just, like, stops being relevant later. Just for decks that, like, don't really have many other options, I don't think it's going to be, like... It's not going to be replacing swords or anything. It could reasonably go in the, what's that mono blue control deck you play? Because I think it would go well in there.
Seinfeld?
Yeah, that one. I think it'd be, like, a pretty viable option there.
I mean, yeah, I can see it in that. Like, if they somehow slip a threat through, you can make them cast it again, so you can actually counter it.
Well, I mean, they don't cast it again. It just buys you time. It just puts it into play.
It doesn't. Oh, I did not know that was how Suspend worked.
Yeah, for creatures, it just goes back. It just goes into play with haste. Actually.
Okay, I like it.
So
even
anyway,
less.
All right. Next card is called... I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it. I'm gonna say it's Sfeilun. Sfeilun of Sea and Sky. It is a, it's by the art was by Seth McKinnon, and I could see it from a mile away. It's a 1 blue for a 3/4 legendary creature merfolk god. As Sphaloon of Sea and Sky... Oh, sorry. Sphaloon of Sea and Sky has indestructible as long as you control at least 2 other merfolk. And when it attacks, you draw a card. And lastly, it says other merfolk you control have ward 1, which is whenever someone targets them with something, they have to pay 1 or counter it.
For context, Ash really wants merfolk to be good in Highlander.
Yeah, I know. Every time, like in the last couple sets, like some merfolk come out, and I'm like, man, I kind of just want to build merfolk now. And I don't normally play aggro decks or tempo decks, but I think I'm gonna try it because I want to. And this art is really pretty.
Yes, but art being pretty doesn't talk about how playable a card is.
You're right, and that's why all the squirrel cards suck.
I mean, I agree, but their art is fantastic.
All right. Well, we're moving on to the next card here. It's called Thot Monitor. It is 6 and a blue for a 2/2 with flying artifact creature construct. It has affinity for artifacts. When it enters the battlefield, you draw 2 cards. This just play it in the affinity deck.
Yeah.
Honestly, maybe play it in Paradox. It's a 1-mana divination.
I didn't even think about that.
It's a 1-mana divination. It probably will be more, but it also might not be more. And even if it is, you're playing Paradox, so you have a ton of mana.
Yeah.
Plus, it makes sure you can transmute artifact it, you can reshape it.
Yeah, that definitely seems pretty good in the affinity deck.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next card, Tide Shaper. It's another merfolk. It's 1 blue mana for a creature merfolk wizard. It's a 1/1. It has kicker for 1. And when it enters the battlefield, if it was Kit, target land becomes an island for as long as you control. As long as Tide Shaper remains in the battlefield. And Tide Shaper gets +1/+1 as long as an opponent controls an island. Also, it's relevant because merfolk care about your opponents having islands. They get island walked by a bunch of their lords. So, merfolk, doing fish stuff.
The next card on our list is Archon of Cruelty. It's 6 black for a creature Archon with flying. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, and loses 3 life, and you draw a card and gain 3 life, and it's a 6/6. I think this card will be pretty good in the mono black control deck that's looking to play Urborg and a bunch of mana rocks like Sol Ring and Grim Monolith. And I think it can also be good in Reanimator. It's probably not the best Reanimator target, but it just gets you so much value instantly, and then the longer it stays on the battlefield, it gets you even more value.
Yeah, I put it on here primarily for the Reanimator deck. And the thing is, I haven't played Reanimator in a really long time, and I don't talk about it that much, but there's just so much in this set that is good for it, that I keep talking about it now. But yeah, my next card is Break the Ice. It is black for a sorcery. Destroy target land that is snow or could produce colorless, and that has overload for 4 black. In recent years, it's basically just become correct to play snow lands for several different reasons. It's almost every deck is playing snow basics, and a lot of decks are playing Ancient Tombs or the ping lands that could generate colorless. That there's actually just a ton of targets for this that I think in certain decks, particularly I'm thinking of Mardu Prison, but I feel like there's a lot of times where this could literally just nuke half someone's lands or all of their lands if you're against medium red.
I don't know. I feel like the main reason that it was just correct to play Snowlands, even if you didn't have any Snow Matters permanents, is because there was no reason not to. But now that this card exists, there's a reason not to, and I will probably stop doing that. What?
Thermokarst.
The fact that I don't even know what that card is means that it's not good enough to matter.
It is a card from Ice Age. It is 1 green, destroy target land. If it was snow, you gain a life.
Yeah, that card does not matter.
That's fair.
I feel like you're not playing a 2-mana Strip Mine.
You wouldn't play Sinkhole?
No.
Well, you heard it here first.
I mean, in Highlander, unless you're playing a dedicated Ponza deck, which I have never seen in Highlander and is probably pretty bad. You should just play lands instead and then strip mine them to death.
That's fair.
I can see how this would be pretty good against Academy or something though. But the next card on our list is Damn. Black for a sorcery. Destroy target creature. A creature destroyed this way can't be regenerated. Or Overload for 2 white to just
this card's busted.
This card, It's like Wrath of God,
Okay,
but
look.
better. Like, you're playing this in just blue-white control.
Okay. I'm literally playing this in blue-white control because I can get it with Spellseeker.
Yep.
This card is so good. Oh my goodness, it's so good. The downside is they can spell snare my wrath.
I mean, the upside of being able to get it with Spellseeker is way more relevant than them being able to spell snare it.
Yeah, no, this card is just ridiculously good. You flip it off of Bob and you're happy about it. Though I don't know what deck is playing Bob and this. I guess like Abs in Low to the Ground mid-range or something. I don't know.
Probably not. But well, see, okay, that's the thing though. You can play it in like an Abzan mid-range deck because it's just a removal spell, and then like if you're way behind and your opponent has a big board state, then you're like, oh, okay, well now I have this Wrath.
Yeah, I guess like that's the whole reason you don't want to play Wraths in mid-range decks. This solves that problem.
Yeah, wow. This card just like got even better than I already thought it was, and I already thought it was completely busted.
I love how we just realized, like, we were sitting here like, yo, this is busted. It's a Wrath of God that you can Spellseeker, but now we're like, oh wait, it also just
it's
does
a removal spell that, yeah.
No, this card's great. All right, you want to talk about Dalthy Voidwalker?
Dalthy Voidwalker. It's black for a creature Dalthy Rogue. It has Shadow. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, instead exile it with a void counter on it. And then you can tap and sacrifice Dalthy Voidwalker and choose an exiled card an opponent owns with a void counter on it, and you may play it this turn without paying its mana cost, and it's a 3/2. This card is just like pretty good.
Jund.
Yeah, you put it in Jund. You probably, I mean, like, the fact that it doesn't exile itself, you can like play it in like with like recurring nightmare shenanigans or whatever, and like,
heck yeah,
I don't know. This card's just really cool. And
so I actually had I have a new player. I have a player that's going to be moving to the area pretty soon, and he was contacting me about helping him build a Highlander list, and he ended up landing on wanting to build Jund. So I was helping him with his list. This card was on there, and I was kind of originally thinking about just like, oh, this is probably pretty good in like the mono black aggro decks, like good way to get some cards back, especially if they're trying to kill it or whatever. But then like I just saw it in the Jund deck and I was like, oh yeah, this is just like a super attrition-y card anyway.
Yeah, like the thing is, it has evasion anyway. So really, like a 3/2, a 2-mana 3/2 with Shadow is pretty good anyway. And then like once they play a threat and you terminate it, then you're like, okay, this 3/2 with evasion has done enough. Now I'm just going to make a bigger thing.
Well, it also says it's a card put in the graveyard from anywhere. So like all the Jace Prince prodigies are getting messed up. All the Thought Scours, all the cantrips people are casting are getting exiled.
Yeah,
like all their fetch lands, everything.
Yeah, it's like
just like without being able to get a card back from it, the fact that it nukes everything they're putting in their graveyard is like it rest in pieces them.
Yeah, like if you play this against Storm, they're just like currently weeping because it's a pretty good clock. It completely ruins everything that they're doing, and
they can't even block it with Trinket Mage.
Nope.
Yeah, card's just gas. All right. Moving on to our next card is Flay Essence. You want to talk about this one or me? Oh, you talked about that one.
I talked about the last two.
So Flay Essence is 1 black. Exile target. It's a sorcery. Exile target creature or planeswalker. You gain life equals the number of counters on it. I don't know if this is going to be like the most popular card ever, but I could see this in like a mono black mid-range control. It's like a very tap out deck. They don't care that much about stuff being sorceries, and like that deck, you kind of use your life total as a resource. So being able to like nuke a big planeswalker and gain some life back is pretty good. And the fact that it can just kill any planeswalker anyway. Again, the fact that it exiles is obviously relevant.
Yeah.
It'll be replacing Hero's Downfall wherever it ends up getting played.
Yeah. I wish that it was an instant, but like I feel like I'm trying to decide if the trade-off between it being a sorcery but also it exiling the thing and you gaining life. But yeah, I think this is, at least in a lot of decks,
It could also just be like Hero's Downfall too.
Yeah, which I mean, you have like Murderous Rider, which is better than both of these. But
better both of them. We may see it. You want to talk about Grief?
Yeah. It is 2 black for a creature elemental incarnation. It has Menace. When Grief enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. It has Evoke for exile a black card from your hand, and it is a 3/2. This is probably one of the less good, like Evoke elemental creatures that we've talked about so far, but it's still pretty good. Like
in Highlander.
Yeah, in Highlander. Like against like combo decks, you're totally fine paying the evoke cost to like do this on turn 1. And then against other decks, you're just like, okay, I'll play this on turn 4 or like 3 with a mana dork or whatever, and I have a pretty reasonable creature and have taken one of your cards away. So it's...
We're not going to talk about the green and the red one, by the way.
Yeah, those are bad.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I've played Abzan. I've played some Abzan creature decks that kind of lean into an ETB sub-theme, so like this is something that I would probably pretty happily slot into that deck.
Yep. Go ahead and talk about your next card.
Alright, next card is Indested Shambler. It is 1 black mana for a creature zombie. It's a 1/1. When it dies, create X tapped 1/1 green squirrel tokens, where X is Nested Shambler's power. I just think this is... It just like, not strictly better, I guess, but it's pretty much just better than a lot of the 1 mana double creatures that the Aristocrats deck plays. Because like if this is holding a... Like it feels really good to move a oh crap, what's it called? What's the equipment that equips for 0?
Is it Grafted Warrior?
Yeah, yes.
I think so.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, hold on. I was gonna say that it feels really good to move this off of that, and then I realized that it doesn't have the buff anymore.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, like if you put that on this and then like sacrifice it to one of your sack outlets.
Yeah, or like if you put a skull clamp on it, it feels really good. If you there's a bunch of other ways that you actually just like buff power from stuff.
Yeah. So originally I had put down that I don't like this card, but this card's actually just pretty good in Aristocrats.
Yeah, like especially if you're in the Marty version where you're not playing green because there's other green ones, but I think this one's just pretty good because it just does the same thing all the other 1 mana double creatures do, but it might be more than.
Alright, so our next card is Profane Tutor. It's a sorcery with Suspend 2 for 1 and a black. And it just says, search your library for a card, put that card in your hand, then shuffle. I mean, obviously this is like much worse Demonic Tutor, but I still think that Demonic Tutor is a powerful enough card that this can see play in like Storm decks. Like if you just like turn 2 or like turn 1 with like a ritual or something. Suspend this and then just like set up until it comes off of suspend.
Do you spend a ritual to cast this on 1?
I mean, it depends on the rest of your hand, like how well you think you'll be able to set up a kill.
Sure, you're better at Storm than me.
Yeah. I mean, it like this. I think it's good enough. It probably feels pretty bad if you top deck it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's a pretty sucky top deck, but like I feel like a lot of mid range decks are just gonna throw it in there because it's basically good.
Yeah, maybe.
The ones that are like kind of set up to be able to drag the game out if they have to, which most mid range decks do.
Yeah. Alright, so do you want to go ahead and talk about your next card?
Yeah. So Sudden Edict is 1 and a black for an instant with split second. Target player sacrifices a creature. I just think this is getting... it's pretty efficient. It's uncounterable. They can't do any sorts of they can't sacrifice their creatures in response anyway to like burn your removal spell basically. And the biggest thing is it kills Merit Lage and Thrun, assuming you can deal with other stuff. So I think this is probably going to be pretty fine in a relatively removal heavy deck. Like this wouldn't be like your second removal spell. This would be like your 5th or 6th removal spell, you know?
Yeah, I don't really like edicts in Highlander in general, but that art's pretty cool.
Haven't you ever been gotten by Innocent Blood?
I
Sucks.
have not.
Oh, I have.
Alright, well,
anyway.
Our next card is Torak Dread Cantor. It's 1 and a black for a legendary creature human cleric. It has Kicker 2, protection from white. Whenever an opponent discards a card, put a +1/+1 counter on Torak. And when Torak enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, target opponent discards 2 cards at random, and it is a 2/1. I think this card's really good. Against white decks, it's fine. It's just a 2 mana 2/1 with protection from white. Against other decks, it's usually going to be a 4 mana, your opponent discards 2 cards, and it's a 4/3 with protection from white.
Honestly though, well, first off, if they only have 1 card in hand when you do it, if you kick it, it's only getting 1/1 counter.
I mean, yeah.
But something I really like about it is the fact that you can Caracas it.
Yep.
If that's like where you're at, but also like kind of like I was talking about with I don't remember what card I was talking about it with, but like a lot of people are making themselves discard cards. Like they're looting, they're setting up for reanimator stuff, they're setting up for combos and stuff. They're just getting value, even if it's small. When people are just doing their own thing, is pretty good.
Yeah.
But so we're making pretty good time here, but I don't want to dawdle on any cards for too long. Let's move on to Unmarked Grave. We both checked this one. It's worse than multiple other options we have, but just the fact that it's another option. It's 1 and a black for a sorcery. Search your library for a non-legendary card and put it into your graveyard, then shuffle. The biggest sad about this is you cannot get Grizzlebrand, you cannot get Elisnorn, you cannot get there was something else that we were upset you can't get with this, but I can't remember what it is.
I don't know.
I do not.
I don't even want to play this card in a reanimator deck. I like this card in Underworld Breach Storm. Specifically Underworld Breach Storm.
I mean, that just is the Storm deck now.
Because your goal is to get Brain Freeze and
Lotus or LED.
Yeah. Usually LED because your points can't afford Lotus.
Disagree.
You disagree?
Yeah, we don't have to have that fight right now.
Okay, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, I think it's like you just put LED in your graveyard or Brain Freeze in your graveyard, whichever one you don't have, and then you kill them dead.
Yeah, pretty much. This is another card I think is probably pretty relevant for budget reanimator lists, because the budget reanimator lists don't play, like, the good legendary creatures to reanimate are the expensive cards. So, like, the budget reanimator targets are like Inkwell Leviathan, Ashen Rider, some of the stuff we already talked about on this episode. So I feel like this is pretty good in a more budget reanimator deck. I think it might be relevant. But if it's expensive, then who knows? But I just thought it was interesting to talk about that way. Also, it can get Strip Mine. That's relevant. It can get Life from the Loam. That's relevant.
Yeah.
The fact that it's a sorcery kind of sucks, but, you know.
Yeah.
All right. So next card is Bray's Apprentice. I noticed I have a lot more cards that I alone wanted to talk about than you did.
Yeah, because I only
Bray's
picked
Apprentice,
good cards. You picked bad cards. I'm just kidding.
So Bray's Apprentice is 2 in a red for a 2/3 artifact creature, Human Artificer. When Bray's Apprentice enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 colorless artifact token with flying. Then you can tap it and sacrifice an artifact to choose one. Exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. Or target creature gets 2/0 until end of turn. I just think this might be relevant, particularly for medium red. As ancient 2 mana, you can get this in play really fast, and 2 buys is nice. But also, if you top deck it later in the game, the fact that it doesn't have haste is a little frustrating, but you play a lot of rocks to like get yourself ahead early, but then if you just kind of fly out a bit or whatever, you don't really need that much mana anymore. That being able to turn those rocks into cards that do something else, I think might be relevant.
Yeah, maybe.
Alright, you want to talk about your next card?
Yeah, so the next card is Chef's Kiss. It's 1 red for an instant. Gain control of target spell that targets only a single permanent or player. Copy it, then reselect the targets at random for the spell and the copy, and the new targets can't be you or a permanent you control. I think I like this in Blue Moon. It's like a counter spell that also just turns it around on them. The line "it can't be you or a permanent you control" is what makes this card playable.
Wait, what happens if you have no creatures? You like go to Lightning Bolt if you go to Flame Slash my creature and then I Chef's Kiss it.
Yeah,
they just fizzle?
Just fizzle.
Do they not get to, because they can't target my thing? Okay. I think this is pretty cool. It sucks that you can't turn the recall to point at you. You know.
Although, if they use the recall to point it at you, then you can make them recall twice.
Wow.
There are very few situations.
So the next card is Dragon Rage Channeler. When you it is 1 red mana for a creature, Human Shaman. It's a 1/1. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Surveil 1, and has Delirium. As long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, it gets +2/+2, flying, and attacks each combat if able. I think this is good for the Is it Blitz decks? That is all. Yeah. Next. Unless you had something.
My question is, how are those Is It Blitz decks getting Delirium? Because they play a lot of instants, sorceries, and creatures, but they don't really play any other card types.
Well, but they do play lands.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That's fair. I don't know how much Delirium they're likely to hit, but even just being able to surveil with every cantrip you're casting, which happens before you resolve the cantrip,
I'm going to be honest, when I read this card, for some reason, I don't know if I just automatically assumed or whatever, I thought it said whenever it attacks, you surveil one.
No, whenever you cast a
Okay,
non-creature spell.
that card just got better.
It's probably better. It's also probably pretty fine in the prowess decks because you play I think more creatures than you do in the Blitz deck, so you're more likely to like have a good like split of stuff, and you play some enchantments. Anyway, next card is Flame Blitz. It is 1 red mana for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, Flame Blitz deals 5 damage to each planeswalker, and then it has cycling for 2. This is actually brought up to me by a player in the community who is probably going to play this card. But this card is really good against the control decks because most of the control decks win by an abundance of planeswalkers as opposed to really anything else. Well, Oracle combo, I suppose. The real control decks, they win by planeswalkers. No, I'm just kidding. Oracle's perfectly valid.
I hate that deck.
Planeswalkers are very, very popular in the format. So the fact that this is a good way to just like sweep the board of planeswalkers pretty quick, and if that's not something you need to do, it cycles pretty efficiently, I think is going to make it something that hangs around.
Yeah, I feel like this is the kind of card I would like put in my like Highlander collection and then always end up cutting it from my decks.
And then lose to it?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the next card?
I'm going to let you talk about it because this is another one that I wasn't a huge fan of.
Really? I thought you might like it. Alright, so this is Flametongue Yearling. It is red for a creature type Kavu. It is a 2-1 with multi-kicker 2. When it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each time it was kicked, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So it can just kind of nug a creature. It's a pretty decent mana sink in the decks, the red decks, like medium red or whatever, that can have an abundance of mana and just be a big boy out of nowhere. Nug a thing.
Yeah, I definitely don't think you play it in medium red. I can see it in maybe some other decks.
Maybe so. I did not think we were talking about this. I even said we weren't talking about this, but you put it down, so you should talk about Fury.
Yeah, so first, Fury is 3 red for a creature elemental incarnation with double strike. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage divided as you choose amongst any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. And it has Evoke for exile a red card from your hand, and it's a 3/3. I, sat there for so long trying to figure out if this was good or not, and I think, I feel like the Evoke thing is underrated. I feel like I would play this in, I can play this in, Jund mid-range, or even medium red, honestly. I wish it wasn't a 3/3, because it dies to bolt, but you're fine just exiling, you lose 2 cards, but you can kill, since it's divided. If it wasn't divided, I would say don't play this card. But if they have a Birds of Paradise and then a Goblin Rabble Master and an Arbor Elf or something, then you have to exile a red card.
What deck is this?
But I don't know, some deck that's playing those 3 cards,
sure,
Gruul aggro or something. I don't know. I think that since it's divided, you are fine exiling the red card if you are hitting the same amount of creatures or more. And then you can play it as a threat that gets bolted, but otherwise it deals 6 damage a turn if they don't block it.
Sure. Alright. So the next card we've got here is Obsidian Charma. I don't think this card's actually going to be good. I just thought it was interesting, so I wanted to talk about it. It is 3 red for a creature dragon. It's a 4/4. Costs 1 less to cast for each land your opponents control that could produce colorless, which, again, I think is more prominent than is obvious. It has flying, and when Obsidian Charma enters the battlefield, destroy target non-basic land that opponent controls. This is not a dragon with haste, which you kind of want, honestly, but the fact that it, 5 mana for a 4/4 flying that casts Stone Rain on ETB, destroys non-basic anyway on ETB, I think is just pretty fine. The fact that it could cost less is cool.
Yep.
I think it definitely could come up. I won't be surprised if it just kind of sits in the sidelines, though. Next card is Busted.
Yeah, it is Ragavan, Nimble Pilfer. It's 1 red for a 2/1 legendary creature monkey pirate. When Ragavan Nimble Pilfer deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card, and it has dash for 1 in a red. It's a really good 1 mana red creature that attacks them until they are dead.
Put it in mono red. Put it in medium red. Put it in Chad's deck. Put it everywhere.
Yep.
Put it everywhere. Oh, Chad's deck. That's what's playing Birds of Paradise, Arbor Elf, and Goblin Rabble Master.
Alright, so I know I just talked about the last card, but I'm going to steal this one from you because for the people that don't know me, I love Jund midrange. I think it's super duper underrated.
He Junds him out.
I Jund him out. And the next card is Ignoble Hierarch, which is a green for a creature Goblin Shaman with Exalted. It's an 0/1, and it can tap to add black, red, or green. I mean, first of all, this card's just busted. It's like another Noble Hierarch, but it taps for Jund colors.
Yeah, it's busted.
It's so good.
If you would play Elvish Mystic, you'd probably play this.
Yep, like, it's just better than most other mana dorks, but also it taps for Jund colors.
It's good for Jund goblins.
Yes, but it's also just good.
Alright, I'm going to talk about Sanctum Weaver now.
Alright.
It's 1 and a green for an 0/2. It's an enchantment creature, Dryad. Tap to add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. You can play it in the... Well, you probably shouldn't, but you could play it in the Bogles deck. But better you play it in the Enchantress deck, or you play it in, like, the Sanctum Stompy Bestow Enchantment Aggro deck. Alright, that's all.
Yep. Hold on.
Next card is...
I'm lost.
We're on Sylvan Anthem. Sylvan Anthem is green for an enchantment. Green creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever a green creature enters the battlefield under your control, you scry 1. I think this is just going to be fine for the mono green Stompy deck. I haven't seen anyone play this deck, but I've seen lists for it, and it looks like it's probably fine, because, green's the best color in Magic, so it seems fine to me. I don't know if it'll even see play in that deck, but it's interesting.
Really interested to know why you like this next card.
Alright, this next card is Thrasta, Tempest's Roar. It's 10 green for a legendary creature dinosaur. It is a 7/7 with trample and haste. Trample over planeswalkers, so you can... That does exactly what it sounds like it does. You trample over their planeswalkers. And then with Thrasta, Tempest's Roar has Hexproof as long as you control... as long as it enters the battlefield this turn. And the most relevant ability on it is this creature costs 3 less to cast for each other spell you cast this turn. Actually, each other spell cast this turn. So if other people cast spells, that's relevant. Really, I just want to see a medium green deck go like land, Mox, Mana Crypt. Is that enough? Mox, Mana Crypt is
no.
6, 7,
I think
8,
if you
9,
play like a
10,
Soul Ring
11.
after that.
Sure. Or like an elf. I just want to see someone like have the nut draw and dump this on turn 1 or 2. It's probably not good. I just want to see it happen.
Yeah, that's fair.
It might be fine in like the elf ball decks though.
Our next card is Timeless Witness. It's 2 green for a creature human shaman. When it enters the battlefield, return target card from your graveyard to your hand, and it has Eternalize for 5 green, and it's a 2/1. I like this card a lot in Kiki Pod, where like having an Eternal Witness that's at 4 mana is sometimes better because you want to like pod your 3-drop into a 4-drop. Specifically in the versions that are playing Time Walk and are trying to like Eternal Witness it back and then like use a Kiki Jiki to keep doing that, or just like do that for value. Because I have played Archaeomancer in my Birthing Pod decks specifically to get Time Walk back, and this is just like better than that. And late game, it's not unreasonable to have 7 mana to just make a 4/4 that gets something back. So I think it's good.
Also green's better than blue in that deck.
Yes, definitely.
Alright, we're going to move on pretty quickly now because we only have a couple more and we're a little short on time now. Tireless Provisioner is 2 into green for a creature Elf Scout. It is a 3/2. It has landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, you create a food token or a treasure token. I think this is good as it is it costs 1 more mana obviously, but it has better body in it. It is a Lotus Cobra. It makes treasure tokens, but what I think is particularly good about it is you can store them, so you don't have to spend it all that turn. You can basically just float that mana from Lotus Cobra forever. Also, like if you're against red or something, you might just like start making food tokens because it's good.
Yep.
I just think it's just gonna be a staple in the land stacks.
Our next card is Verdant Command. 1 and a green for an instant. Choose 2. Target player creates 2 tapped 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens. Counter target loyalty ability of a planeswalker. Exile target card from a graveyard, or target player gains 3 life. This card just provides enough versatility to... Wait, did I use that word right? Yep.
It's versatility.
Versatility.
Yeah,
there you go. I was like, wait, I don't think I pronounced that right. Yeah. It just provides enough versatility to be good.
Versatility.
Yeah, you're right. I'm kidding. Like, you're pretty much always making the squirrels and then picking another thing, but like, oh, they just play a Snapcaster Mage, oh, you exile that thing, or they just, like, best case scenario, obviously, is like, they ult their, like, Jace the Mind Sculptor, and you're like, haha, funny.
Yeah. Alright, so our next card is Bound Shikari. It is 1 red-white for a 0/0 with first strike. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each other artifact creature you control, and it has modular 2. So it enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters, and when it dies, you can move them to a different artifact creature. I just think this is pretty efficient and pretty good for the Affinity deck.
Yep.
This set is kind of making me want to build Affinity in a way that leans a little more into colored pips. So it'd be kind of interesting how the build works out. But I think it's probably pretty good.
Next card is Karth the Lion. It's 2 black-green for a legendary creature human warrior. When Karth enters the battlefield or a planeswalker you control dies, look at the top 7 cards of your library and you reveal a planeswalker card from among them. Put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Planeswalker's loyalties abilities you activate cost an additional +1 to activate, and it's a 3/5.
That's the relevant part on the bottom there.
Yep. I mean, this card's just, like, really good in, like, green-black rock.
I'm playing it in Abzan Super Friends.
Yeah, I mean, like, this gets into any Super Friends deck, obviously. But, like, even just, like, in a deck that's not a dedicated Super Friends deck, but is playing enough Planeswalkers that you're probably going to hit one in the top 7. Like, worst case scenario, this is... Well, like, usual case scenario, this is like a cantrip that's a 3/5 creature, which blocks real good.
That you can Krakus.
Yep, you can Krakus it.
Alright, you want to talk about Dakon?
Yeah. So, Dakon Shadow Slayer is white, blue, black for a legendary planeswalker Dakon. When Dakon enters the battlefield... Dakon enters the battlefield with a number of loyalty counters on him equal to the number of lands you control. And it has a +1 to Surveil 2, a -3 to exile target creature, and a -6 to put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. I really like this card. If you play it on turn 4, you can immediately exile a creature and still have it at 1 loyalty, and then they have to deal with it before you start ticking it up. It's still pretty good to play it on turn 3, and it gets even better the later game you play it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Alright, so this next card is another card for Reanimator decks. I feel like this is just going to be kind of an auto-include. It's called Hottest Ploy. It's 1 blue-black for an instant. You draw 2 cards, then discard a card, and then you gain life equal to the number of cards you discarded this turn. And then it has Jumpstart, which if you don't know is you discard a card, then you can play it from your graveyard. I think it's a lot of opportunities to discard your Reanimator targets, and yet another example of why incidentally nuking people's discard effects is pretty cool.
Yep.
I just think it's pretty efficient. Next is Aethersworn Sphinx.
It's 7 white-blue for an artifact creature Sphinx. It has affinity for artifacts, flying, cascade, and it's a 4/4. It gets in the affinity deck that we've been talking about.
Yes, it does.
You just, like, it kills them dead and makes a friend that also kills them dead.
It's good. Next, General Ferris Rokirik. Oh, yeah, this one. Okay, no, this card's cool. This is 1 red-white for a legendary creature human soldier. It's a 3/1. It has hexproof from monocolored, which is most removal you deal with. Not all, but most. And then whenever you cast a multicolored spell, you create a 4/4 white and red golem artifact creature token. I think this is going to be good in a deck that I have been wanting to play for a long time, which is called 5-color Zoo, just Rainbow Zoo. You play Knight of Alara that gives all your creatures +1/+1 for each color they have. I just think this would be good in like the gold Zoo deck.
Yep, and the hexproof from monocolored is actually like much more relevant than it seems. Anyway, our next card is Gaedrone Dihada. It is 1 blue, black, red for a legendary planeswalker Dihada. Protection from permanents with corruption counters on them. Its +1 is each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, and then you put a corruption counter on up to 1 other target creature or planeswalker. Its -3 is gain control of target creature or planeswalker until end of turn. Untap it and put a corruption counter on it. It gains haste until end of turn. And its -7 is gain control of each permanent with a corruption counter on it. And it comes in at 4 loyalty. This card's really good. It starts plussing and protects itself. The longer it's on the battlefield, the more it protects itself. It can take their creatures to hurt them and protect itself. And when it ults, it kills them. Usually.
Yep. Alright, next thing we got is Graceful Restoration is I just want to try this out in like my Abzan creature combo decks. It's a not green. It's 3 white-black for a sorcery. You choose 1. Return a creature from your graveyard with an additional 1/1 counter on it. to the battlefield, or return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So I feel like being able to regrow relevant combo pieces and stuff would probably be pretty cool.
Yep. Grist the Hunger Tide. As long as Grist the Hunger Tide isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. +1, create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, then mill a card. If an insect card was milled this way, put a loyalty counter on Grist and then repeat this process. -2, you may sacrifice a creature. When you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker. And -5, each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard, and it comes in at 3 loyalty. I think it's a pretty good 3-mana walker. It makes creatures to protect itself. It deals with their threats. Its ult is a little bit underwhelming, but it's fine for a 3-mana planeswalker, and you can tutor it with creature tutors.
Yep, you can court of calling it into play.
Yep, or Green Sun.
You're never ever triggering its +1 unless you're playing Scute Swarm. But
yeah, it's +1. The second line is not relevant. Although milling you a card is relevant because a lot of green-black decks quite enjoy having cards in their graveyard.
All right, so next is Lonis, Cryptozoologist. It is blue-green for a 1/2 legendary creature, Snake Elf Scout. When another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you investigate. That's pretty good. Everything's Thraven Inspector. And you tap, sacrifice X clues. Target opponent mills the top X card to their library. You can put a non-land permanent with mana value X or less from among those cards on the battlefield under your control. I think this is probably just going to be good.
Yeah.
Like in Bant ETB or whatever, just to keep investigating, and then if you randomly like have a ton of clues and you just want to like mess up their Scry or their Enlightened Tutor or something.
Yeah, I really like it in Bant ETB. And then in other decks it's probably still like fine. But our next card is Priest of Fellrights. It is actually, I'm gonna let you talk about this because I didn't like this one.
Alright. It's black-white for a creature human warlock. It's a 2/2. It has Unearth for 3 white-black, and you can tap it, pay 3 life, sacrifice it, and return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. I just think having a creature that you can use to reanimate something that is not as expensive as Karma Guide, I think it's just going to be irrelevant. The fact that it doesn't have haste is pretty bad.
Yeah, if this had haste, I would like it. But
yeah, I mean, if you Unearth it, it gets haste.
That's true.
Right? Yeah. I just think it's like interesting. I want to try it in those like Absent creature decks. Next we have Rakdos Headliner. Black-red for a 3/3 with haste, and it has Echo to discard a card. I think this is just going to be good in the Rakdos aggro, or like 3 or 4 color aggro, just because it's really efficient and doesn't die to an Arbor Elf. And like, yeah, you discard a card, but boo-hoo, you're playing aggro, you know? You feel me?
Yeah.
Next is Road to Ruin. This is 2 and a green for an instant. Search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. And then it has Aftermath. Ruin is the Aftermath side. It's 1 red for a sorcery. Deals damage to target creature equal to the number of lands you control. So I like this because, particularly I like this in the like 3 or 4 color Scapeshift decks, because it's a instant speed tutor. So you can kind of, if you're leaning on your more control-y stuff, you can instant speed ramp out a land, and then it also is relatively efficient removal on the backside for a deck that's going to be ramping lands into play.
I still don't know if I like it that much, but I did not notice that it was instant, so that's pretty good. Our next card is Siphis Harvest Hand. It is 1 green and white. Sorry, a green and a white, not a green and a white. It's just green and white. For a legendary enchantment creature, Nymph, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life and draw a card, and it's a 1/2. It's just...
Play it in Enchantress.
Yep, it draws cards, gains life, you know, what you want to do.
It's an Enchantress. Alright, next one's a good one. This is a Territorial Kabu. It's red-green for a star with Domain. Its power and toughness each equal to the number of basic land types among lands you control. And then whenever it attacks, you choose 1. Draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Or exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard.
I love this card in 3-color decks, especially like 4-color Blood, like just a 2-mana 4/4 with upside. Yes, please. A 2-mana 3/3 with upside is still pretty good. And then, like, it definitely goes in that 5-color Zoo deck you were talking about.
Yep.
Our next card is... I love this card. Sword of Hearth and Home. is 3 mana for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from green and from white. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, exile up to 1 target creature you own, then search your library for a basic land card, and then put both of those cards onto the battlefield under your control, and then shuffle your library, and it has equipped for 2. I mean, first of all, this is just like insane in Bant ETB. In other decks, it like gets a land every time it hits.
Just good.
Yeah, it's just good.
Alright, I got these next 2 cards. First one is Zabaz, the Glimmer Wasp. It has 1 mana 0/0. It's 1 mana 0/0 with modular 1. It's a legendary artifact creature insect, if you playing it with Grist. If a modular triggered ability would put 1 or more 1/1 counters on a creature you control, put that many +1 on it instead. And then you can pay a red to destroy an artifact you control, or you can pay a white to give this flying till end of turn. I think this is just good in the affinity deck. Of course, you play lots of modular stuff in that deck anyway, so it's just a 1 mana 1/1 with modular artifact creature that then is going to buff all your stuff and then make your modular effects better. And you can also you could blow up your own stuff, kind of like Arcbound Ravager style, where you're blowing up your modular stuff to make it big and then kill them. But more likely, you're just giving it flying.
Yeah.
And then the next one is so I listed Dark Moss Bridge here, though realistically, we're really talking about
the whole cycle.
The cycle of artifact lands. They're indestructible artifact lands that are duals. They're all 10 color combinations and they enter the battlefield tapped. I don't know just how much of a big deal they're going to be. I think they'll come up some amount. It's definitely interesting. I think they're going to...
Like, I feel like they are going to be relevant. I just can't figure out where.
Yeah. One that I missed until right now is Power Depot. It is another artifact land, enters the battlefield tapped, makes colorless, or you can add 1 mana of any color, but you can only use it to cast artifact spells or activate abilities of artifacts. I think that'll be reasonable. But notably, it has modular, so you can, if you have no creatures, but you have a modular creature die, you can move its 1/1 counters to this land, and then move it, sacrifice the land to move them somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that might be relevant in the affinity deck too.
Pretty good. The next card is Urza Saga. This card is insane. It is an enchantment land, and it's a saga. So the first lore counter when it enters is it just gains tap to add a colorless. So it's a colorless land. The second lore counter says Urza Saga gains pay 2 and tap to create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. And then its third lore counter is search your library for an artifact card with mana cost 0 or 1, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle.
2 words. Black Lotus.
Or just Soul Ring.
Black Lotus.
This is just in Paradox Academy where you're playing Soul Ring anyway. It's a land, and then it's just
mana crypt in
becomes a better land. Yeah, or Mana Crypt, depending on your point spread.
Alright, and then our last card we're going to talk about is Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. It's a legendary land. Each land is a forest in addition to its other types. It's green or Borg.
Yep.
Play it with Rofellos. So this episode has already gone... Sorry, do you have anything else to say about Yavimaya?
Nope.
Alright. This episode's already gone pretty long, so we're not going to say too much longer, but I just want to very, very briefly touch on the reprints we got. The relevant reprints we got out of this set. The biggest one is the Zendikar fetch lands.
Yeah, that is huge.
Those are always in need of being reprinted. Other relevant ones are Imperial Recruiter, Titania, Protector of Argoth, to a lesser extent, Sterling Grove. 2 better ones, though, are Zuran Orb and Cabal Coffers.
Yep,
are both reprinted in this set, which is pretty good.
Yep.
And then Abundant Harvest this is the first normal looking printing of Abundant Harvest, which I think it's just going to be it's new. If you haven't seen it, it's in the it was in the Strixhaven Mystical Archives in its first printing, and now it's getting a normal printing here. But it's 1 green mana for a sorcery. You choose land or non-land. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind and put it into your hand, and the rest in the bottom in any order.
Yeah.
It's like a green cantrip that gets you a land or not, whatever you need. I think it's
pretty good.
All right, and then very, very, very quickly before we finish up the episode here, you want to talk about what deck you played most recently? And by talk about, I mean say it.
Yeah, I played 4-color Kiki Pod because we had not played Highlander in a really long time, and because of COVID, and that's my favorite deck, so I figured what better way to come back swinging than to play a 4-color Kiki Pod.
I promise this segment is not just so I can flex right now, but because we're going to do this segment every episode. But what I played last week was I was going to play Blue-White Control, and then a friend of mine offered to let me borrow a particular card to play a deck. So he said, Ash, do you have eggs put together right now? And I said, well, yeah, it's pretty much put together. And he's like, do you want to borrow my Black Lotus and play eggs? And I said, yes. And then I borrowed his Black Lotus and played eggs, and it was fantastic. And then I went up against Nicholas round 1, and he got a Collector Roof and play all 3 games.
Yep, I also cast Time Walk on turn 2 for for pretty much no value, 2 of the games against him.
All right, well, this episode's already run long, so we're going to see you guys next time.